Disruptors and curious minds, welcome to another episode of Thinking on Paper. My name's Jeremy. This is Mark. We get to talk to the people building the future. They're taking old systems and reinventing them. They're creating systems that we will eventually interact with on a daily basis. And we're here to help unpack that and understand it and see what it means to our lives, to our culture, to society, all that fun stuff. Mark, how you doing today, sir?
I'm good. And just a quick shout out to Ian, who made our new intro trailer. Very impressed with that. So thank you, Ian. Yeah, today's show, blockchain interoperabilities, lava network, a lot of technical knowledge that we've been learning about. We're going to learn about that. Like, I'm very interested in today's because I've been, like a lot of people, moving tokens between chains. Wormhole from Celestia to Optimism to Arbiter, moving coins around. And in the research for this show, I've stopped and wondered, hold on, what's actually happening behind the transaction? What's going on behind the scenes? How is it possible that I can move assets between chains so smoothly, so easily? And I think today's guest is going to help us understand how that works.
Yeah, that's all. And I've always wondered too, like when blockchain first started gaining some popularity a few, 3 or 4 years, it's been around forever, but 3, 4 years ago when the Web3 thing kind of started spinning up, I always wondered, I was like, man, this is a great concept, a great idea to have these trustless platforms and that sort of thing. But then I was like, man, if all these different chains build up, are we just moving the gatekeeper, right? We have platforms now that are kind of gatekeepers. And then if we have all these different chains, we have, gatekeepers, but this is a way to make all these independent things work together, I think. So let's get there. Why don't you introduce our guest, Mark?
Yeah, so today's guest is Yair Cleper. He's a serial founder and entrepreneur, CEO of Magma Devs, and contributor to the Lava Network, which is what we're going to be speaking about mostly today. So welcome to the show.
Hey guys, great to be here.
Thank you for being here. And you've got a big task ahead of you today, Yair, to help us understand interoperability, the modular blockchain network.
Yeah, it sounds like there's a lot of my shoulders, so
No pressure. I mean, if we jump in, so I've read the website. I'm from Web3, so I understand what's happening. Maybe you could just talk us through what Lava Network is, but maybe speak through the benefits. What's it doing? What's it giving me as a Web3 user? And what's it giving developers? Because that's two very different audiences, and I think they're going to approach this from very different spaces and places.
Yeah, of course. So, me and my co-founder, when we jumped right in Web3 3.5 years ago, we started to do, MEV bots. He started to do that, and then he dragged me in. And we communicate a lot with the different blockchains. 3.5 years ago, you didn't have thousands of blockchains that coming up like today, but we had the same problem. The infrastructure was shit, right? And it's very interesting because the way you interact with the blockchain is the same over each and every blockchain, right? Read, write transaction at the end of the day, read data, fetch data, write transactions, and it's all going to the same thing. If a chain is able to bring developers, that's what they want, right? It's all about the usage, the utilities, and we realized that this piece of infrastructure is missing, right? We see that there are a few different layers in the blockchain. We have the data availability and consensus, we have settlement execution, but nobody really specialized and give you an access layer that you can interact with it and reach every blockchain. So our first vision was that we can give dApps the ability to write a single line of code and get access to all the different blockchain without the need to run a node, to speak to a provider, and to make it smooth that it can brings like scalability, interoperability, obviously, and security while doing so. This is in a nutshell.
If I could expand on that, just kind of poke and prod a little bit. So I'm gonna try and compare it to an existing or an older technology, right? So I come from the data center world, hardware infrastructure, that sort of thing, and you have these facilities that are interconnected, right? And within these data centers, you have something called a meet me room, which is where all of the network providers kind of bring their fiber into this one room, right? And there is a team that usually manages like, hey, this fiber needs to connect to that fiber, and it's almost like this patch bay living in the middle to make sure that network can connect to other networks. The more it can connect to other networks, the more valuable it is. Network effects, that whole thing. Am I on the right track with? Is this kind of what Lava is aiming to do in the blockchain space?
Have you just described an operator, Jeremy?
Exactly. Yeah. So I think, let me start with a question. What language, guys, do you speak? What different languages, if more than one?
English and Spanish.
English and French.
Oh, okay. So enchanté and mucho gusto. I speak Hebrew, English, and a bit of other languages. And if you think about the term RPC, remote procedure call, this is the language of the blockchain, right? So in order to interact with the blockchain itself, you need to speak those languages, and you need to understand what the RPC specification for each and every chain. So in order to do that today, you have different options. You can run the nodes as the original, the original idea behind blockchains, or you can use a great set of companies like Alchemy, Blockdaemon, and ask them the question that you want to query the blockchain. For example, what Ethereum price? What's the gas fee price? If you want to mint a token, right? If you want to claim an airdrop, all of these kind of different functions are requiring a node runner to go and query the blockchain and give you back the result. Does that make sense?
And that's what RCP essentially does, but
RPC, yeah.
or RPC. So
Yeah.
all right, so RPC is who comes up with the specs of that language, right? So you have like someone who wants to create the universe. I don't know if you remember like Esperanto, right? Like creating, hey, we're going to make a language that everyone's going to speak. You create the language, but no one adopts it, then it doesn't do anything. So is this particular language universally adopted just in blockchain technology in general?
This is an amazing analogy, I think. Like in general, RPC is the language of each and every blockchain, right? So Ethereum coming up with hundreds of different RPC APIs, and they say this is how you interact. You're running a node, and this is how you interact with the blockchain itself. Celestia is doing the same. Solana. Everyone has a unique a unique point of different APIs that you can interact with the chain with them. And today, the developers, the dApps, the wallets, they need to know this set of queries. And I'm going to ask you something. When you're surfing the web, right? When you're surfing the web and you're typing www.google, do you know what is HTTPS? Do you know what is TCP/IP? What version it uses? Do you ever wondered this website is stored in North America? Is it GCP, AWS? And when we came first time to blockchain, we realized that you need to know these things. And we ask yourself, how come is it possible? How come you build a scalable, domain with millions and even billions of different dApps when every dApp need to answer those questions? And this is exactly why we decided to found Lava.
It's so every blockchain, I just want to be clear on the RPC. So every blockchain has it, but then they have their own versions of it. So
Yes,
the RPC
exactly,
on Solana is different to Ethereum, and Lava is the universal Duolingo of those, connecting them, translating them.
You can look at that exactly as that. You are a dApp, right? And you want to build something on Near, okay? But so what do? You need to get access to the data. So you can use Lava, okay? In the last 6 months, 50% almost of the volume of Near go through Lava, of the data requests. But then, every successful dApp is go multi-chain, right? So then I need to replicate what I do with Near. I need to go now to Solana. I need to go now to Ethereum. So how do I do that? Today, until Lava was in the picture, you need to go and find the providers, the data providers, in order to continue and expand to different chains. With Lava, with a single line of code, you have the access and you don't need to worry about, is it scalable? What is the uptime? Is it reliable? And so forth.
So, and just for those that are kind of still rooted in, non-blockchain, this would be like developers building, you talked about multi-chain, right? Is kind of where the dApps are going. They want to be multi-chain. This is like building for iOS and building for Android and like building for these environments where, those communities can interact with your application, correct?
Exactly, yeah. So at the end of the day, let's say you are a wallet user. You're opening the wallet. What's happening right away? You see the account balance, right? You can make a transaction. But behind the scenes, it's exactly what you mentioned in the intro to this podcast. What happened behind the scenes? So Lava is kind of the underlying protocol that gives you the data. And the end user don't need to think, oh, do we have privacy? If next time we're going to make claim an airdrop, do we get an error? This is exactly the problem that we came here to solve.
Can I ask some potentially silly questions?
There's no silly questions, there's only silly answers, but yeah.
Reassuring to know. So what your daily user, it was 160,000 daily users. To ask my silly question, I need to ask what are those 160,000 users doing? So what is the majority? Is that DeFi transactions? Is this moving coins between chains? What's the main purpose of those 160,000?
What is 160,000? I'm not sure.
Is that unique users on average daily on
yeah. In the last months, we have 2.6 million users that using us, and also a few millions in the last 1 week. So there is obviously it's scaling up. But who are those users? Those are wallet users that opening the wallets and the wallet using Lava in order to get access to the chain. The users can be DEXs, right? That they need to query the data and goes back to the chain to make the transaction, right? Those are the users, the dApps, the wallets, the sexes, the exchanges, the DEXs. Those are the users that are actually implementing Lava to be the underlying protocol. Does it make more sense?
That makes sense. And which particular chains are the majority of these happening at the moment? Is there?
Yeah. So today Lava is available on more than 40 chains, and you see an enormous number of 80 billion on-chain interactions. Those are what we mentioned before: the RPC request, the minting, staking, all of that, and that's already happening on Lava. The second part of that is what is the newest product of Lava that was launched 6 months ago, which called the incentive pools. This is a tool for the chains themselves that I can elaborate, obviously, if you would like a bit later.
I need to ask my silly question before that. I don't know, a while ago, and I was speaking to Jeremy just before the show, there was a meme and it was about Web3 gaming, and it was a picture of a player playing a game, and the character on the screen would move a pixel, and then MetaMask wallet would pop up and it's confirm the transaction, and then the player would move another pixel, and then MetaMask would come back up and it was confirmed transaction. And we talk a lot about interoperability, and if we move away from finance and we move perhaps to this layer of gaming that we often speak about, can Lava do the same things? Because I assume when you're playing games between chains in the future, the same information will have to move. Is this something that Lava can, will, or does already accommodate? Is that something which I should even be thinking about and asking that question? That's my silly question.
So It's not. Obviously, it's not silly. It's a matter of definition, right? And Lava is not a bridge. Okay, it's not a cross chain. Lava helps dApps to interact with a specific blockchain that they can choose every time. Okay, so it's built as the access layer to all Web3. And when you want to interact with a certain chain, you can implement Lava. And if the dApps move for a different chain, it doesn't need to do the same process all over again. Does it answer your question?
Yes.
Your smart question.
Thank you. Over to you, Jeremy.
Yeah. So what does this mean as we look to the future, where blockchain finds these great little moments to solve big problems? Like from a worldwide perspective, I mean, blockchain's doing great things today, but it's the adoption of it in new, widely adopted scenarios. We're still not quite there yet. What does Lava do to help this down the road? What are you seeing?
Imagine that you are a DApp developer and you know that as part of the fundamentals of Web3, you have a lot of things to do. But part of the resources, part of developers, you need to contribute in implementing a private cloud at your back garage. Is it scalable? Is it something that makes you, I want to develop those application? Not, right? So if you think about how we encourage a billion dApps coming to Web3, how we encourage usability, how we encourage users that don't open a wallet and see errors. I think that this is exactly the part that Lava is helping. If you want to see a scalable industry going to more and more utility cases, I think at the end of the day, you need to solve this infrastructure problem. We call it bootstrapping your own infra. You see that, with the modular thesis, with the monolithic, with the chain abstraction. It doesn't matter how you call it, but there's a proliferation of different chains, right? Everyone wants to create his own chain to get his own sovereignty. So all of these chains answering the same questions. How do we bootstrap the infra? It's starting with RPC, bring dApps to build on top of that. But then they have the same problems. Indexing, subgraphs, Oracle, all of that. And we believe that Lava can be this new data primitive that everyone gonna use in order to easier the building, right? In order to make sure that dApps are coming and they have scalable usage.
We talk a lot about hierarchical systems versus emergent systems, and the phenomenon of emergence, right? If you're connected, or if you're connecting all of these different chains, and you're witnessing these things happen over these chains, it's almost like you're looking at it. You ever witness like a group of starling, these birds move, and they, one moves and they all kind of move together. It's this beautiful like dance. It would seem interesting to me, knowing that you're connected to 40 plus blockchains, you have 80 plus billion of these calls between them. You could start to like have a real interesting perch on the trends of this emergent phenomenon. Do you think about that at all? And if so, what sort of applications?
This is one of the applications that can build in the Lava community. And I see some initiatives starting to form. What you can do with this data, right? If you think that Lava is designed to be invisible to the users, but still you have a lot of way to contribute, you think that there's a lot of dApps that going to use this information to eventually even build this multi-chain dApps and stuff like that. You mentioned analytics. We can think about different transactions and see, like, internally in a community, you say, for example, Near, right? But where are the users from Near coming from, right? This is information that you can see on the blockchain. We just came up with a dashboard that shows the regions that every user is interacting with. I can maybe leave a link at the end, but it shows like, you know, every country in the world, from Hawaii to Japan, there are users that using Lava constantly. And yeah, that's one of the ideas, I guess, to have better insights into the community, to see where there might be bottlenecks and stuff like that.
On picking up on you said, Jeremy, that I think there are some big trends in the blockchain space, these new use cases, this real world utility that people are talking about. They're mostly acronyms: RWA, DPIN, privacy enhancing technologies. I suppose Lava can play a role in all of those moving forward. I think another one that's particularly interesting is the resurgence of Bitcoin as a programmable blockchain. Is this something that Lava will be able to fit in? Like, how, if it on that note, if a new, or when a new blockchain is created, a new layer one, how quickly the RPC can be incorporated into Lava?
First of all, thank you for the question. It's just, you know, one of the great features I think we thought at the beginning of Lava: flexibility. New chains are emerging and they have all the time upgrades, they have new versioning. How do we make the infrastructure scalable and flexible at the same time? So this question we addressed from the early on, right? Lava can customize each and every infrastructure for each chain, and this helps the developers to adapting to specific needs, right? So there is a concept we call on Lava champions. Those are the guards that watching the specific RPC for a chain. They can come up with new versions, and they make sure that once this version is live, all the providers has to support that. All the provider has to make sure that they also develop the support needed for this chain. So I'm going to give a quick example. For example, a new chain is coming up, and they creating what I described before, the incentive pool, right? They say, okay, this is the spec, this is what providers, node runners has to develop, has to support when joining this incentive pool. And then they put in incentives, right? They can put from 50K, 100K, it doesn't matter. By the end of the day, the providers are joining the chain, giving the support, giving the service to the dApps, and at the end of every month, they receive the rewards based on the quality of service. So this is how we bring flexibility to new upgrades and supports like that.
So when a new chain comes on board, you have, say, Mark and I are developers on that chain where we know it top to bottom, and there's an incentive pool that's created in coming onto Lava, and we are able to apply our skill sets and receive rewards to make that relationship between Lava and the chain that we're developing on grow and become more valuable. That's kind of the model, right?
Think about, we started Lava, as we said, it's an Uber for nodes, right? We find out that a lot of developers already running the nodes, but they don't monetize them. So if I'm a super user in one of the blockchains, and I see this incentive pool, I can join, list my nodes, at the end of the month receive rewards for that. This concept was not even applicable before. Until now, you have a reputable node runners that you don't know if they do really the best job, right? So now chains have the tool to incentivize and give community back using these incentive pools.
I love these threads, these common threads that we have, Jeremy. But I remember last week with Coinbase, and we had Coinbase on last week, and they were talking about their desire to bring 1 million new developers into blockchain because there's a shortage of developers. And
only 20,
in fact, we had
20,000, I think.
Yeah, we had the same problem with our quantum guest in IBM, that this shortage of developers. And incentives. It all comes back to the power of incentives to bring more people into it. And I like that little thread between last week's show and this week's show of the incentivizing developers.
I don't want to go too far down the quantum hole, but I'm a quantum nerd for sure. Do you think about quantum at all, related to like seeing the next 10 years, just from a technological landscape, and how do you think about it?
Well, Jeremy, that's last week's question for you've the invisible segue. You've done it.
Oh my gosh, I did. Yeah, we do like to tie these shows together, Yair. And
That's a
we
smart
had
idea, yeah.
yeah. So what do you think about quantum? Like when
Post-quantum cryptography.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that. I will not say I'm a nerd, quantum nerd, but I definitely trying to keep up on the latest trends. And I think already governments are trying to develop kind of counter cryptography or post-quantum cryptography because it's crucial for the blockchain security, right? It can eventually break the traditional cryptographic method that we know. And if governments are already saying, "Oh, that's a threat," which usually they're lagging behind, I think that
Well, yeah,
definitely
we want the private industry to be coming up with solutions, don't we? Not the government for this.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying if the government there, so this is a real threat. How long it takes them to keep up. So I think in general, blockchain protocols and also Lava itself, all of us, we will need to evolve to this kind of quantum resistance mechanism. And I think one of the good the good things of that is that the decentralization nature of the blockchain makes it super adaptable, and obviously the mutual efforts going to create this collaboration that we're going to be prepared for post-quantum era.
I love that.
I think there's two pieces of the puzzle. Like when I think about quantum and blockchain, or quantum and Lava, just as much as I've understood lately about what Lava is doing, there's a lot of data coming out, right? Between like all of your transactions and nodes and 80 billion RCPs. Like I think that's a lot, right? And traditional computing will get to a point where it can't handle that. And that'd be interesting to see what quantum can do to help with the data analytics side of that. But yeah, I think what did they say last week, Mark, on the post quantum?
IBM said we don't have to worry for at least another decade. Although our guest next week we have D-Wave Quantum on next week, and they've just been in the news about a Chinese from Shanghai research department who have broken, but a very limited, it's like 28-digit cryptography or something. So IBM said a decade. We'll ask D-Wave next week what they think. But yeah, I forgot what I was going to say. I had something in my head then, Jeremy. It's all for you. Go for it.
Yeah. Yair, what are you most excited about right now that you're working on related to Lava, or related to something else you're developing?
So I think you touched this number, 80 billion requests, and I think that this number, what it was used as a metric in the industry, doesn't really matter, right? This number can say that we are in the early beginning, or it can say that we are already advanced. But I'm super excited about the fact that you see more and more chains adopting Lava as the go-to access layer. It starts with the RPC, goes to API indexing, and I'm super excited about the opportunity that developer has today when they build it. When we started 3 years ago, we really needed to run a node in each and every chain. We needed to implement, from load balancers to disaster recovery backup, all of these things that we thought, how come every dApp that's building that has to do the same? And this is a problem. This is something that we want to focus on. And one of the most exciting things is in general, blockchain today, and you see how volatile it is that the conversation about the infrastructure has to stop, right? We need to focus on the utility. We need to focus on bringing millions of Telegram users to use it. We need to focus on bringing of millions of social apps users to use it. And I think that with Lava, you pave the way to really make it a game changer for the industry.
Yeah, that conversation needs to change. I think that with so much going on in terms of these verticals, I fear that it might not come straight away. This moving from the infrastructure to the consumer utility. My question was on about AI and data, by the way, Jeremy. If you have quantum that can help sift through all this data, and then if you incorporate AI into it as well, then maybe we can use the quantum to sift the data and AI to look for patterns. So yeah, one of the things, it's a new segment on Thinking on Paper. It's called Being a Founder or Being an Entrepreneur in Blockchain, and you have quite a history. And we have quite a few CEOs. Most of our guests are CEOs and founders, entrepreneurs in different technologies. And I want to do this thing where if you were starting tomorrow a blockchain venture, where would you prioritize the majority of your time and efforts? If you were starting a new protocol, whatever it was, what would you, where would you focus the 20% that makes the 80% of the difference?
I think you mentioned that in the question we have over like too much activity around infrastructure, and it's time to bring it to utility. So I will look for examples in Web2 tech that can be easiest implemented into blockchains. I would look for real use cases of a Web2 enterprise, even government, that can be much more efficient if implemented with blockchain. I heard like California government implementing the driving plates on Avalanche. I hear like there is a very interesting startup on Solana that taking kind of cutting the middleman of Western bank, or giving checks in third world countries like that. Those are real use cases that, if implemented nice, right, not even perfect, they could bring a lot of adoption to Web3. So if you're a founder that coming from Web2 with an expertise in derivatives, right, in finance, look for utilities that tomorrow can be brought into to blockchain. If you see that the same goes to gaming, there is a lot of hype around the real world assets and so forth. That would be my my 2 cents for as a founder to founder, and that's what I personally want to see in Web3.
What do you I always like to ask this question. What do you say to, because there are a lot of people who think the world still operates perfectly using databases. We're good. Yeah, databases are good. We're going to keep rock and rolling. How do you talk to someone who is deeply entrenched in database world that says, databases can do everything that blockchain does, which I know they can't, but do you ever run into that, and how does that discussion go?
I can go back 10 years ago. Wow, 10 years ago, when I was speaking to a good friend, one of the founders of eToro, who actually introduced to me Vitalik himself. Vitalik came as an intern to eToro 2013. We had a great chat. Obviously, I didn't understand half of what he said, and I was I ignored it enough to not follow him even. I jumped into Web3 only three and a half years ago. But he was talking to me about, it's not efficient, right? At the end of the day, Bitcoin is not efficient. So it grew up to serve as kind of the gold for Web3, right? Now it's trying, the people are trying with Lightning and to create also smart contracts with Bitcoin. Ethereum suddenly to come, and it says like, they're gonna create this kind of a world computer that everyone can just write a code. That's, by the way, why my co-founder joined. He was top intelligence force in Israel, and he was like super excited about being able to write code that's going to be executed on different computers. If you think about the beginning of Solana, they said, "Oh, we're going to replace the Nasdaq, right? It's inefficient." I don't see them replacing the Nasdaq yet, but they have other use cases that's going there. So I think when the world is developing today, the pace is as never before. So it's very hard to say like what's going to happen to database, but you still have banks, right? You still have very traditional enterprises that using centralized database, and sometimes it's better. One thought about Lava with databases is about caching, right? We developed at the beginning caching, and we thought, oh, it's a very strong competitive advantage that we have towards other protocols. But then is what in general we did with Lava is like open source that. So put the caching models to the providing the self that they can use it and improve their services and eventually get more rewards. So in general, the industries go towards open source. And if I'm going to tell you now, what do you think about GPS? And I have this crazy idea like 20 years ago to create this GPS concept and stuff like that. Do you want to buy tokens, or do you want to help contribute? I think you would do that, right? So this is what blockchain allows and enables, right? Everyone can be an early contributor and maybe one day meet with a big upside.
Makes sense. I like it.
Well, I think in your line of work, Jeremy, you meet that resistance to blockchain more regularly than perhaps, and I do. Do you come up against the friction when you mention it?
Yeah, it boils down to like to me it seems like there's like we're still in like laboratory mode with a lot of things from a massive scale. There's a lot of very definitive solutions that are happening in kind of a micro level, but from a macro level, like adoption across the world and the traditional way the world operates. I think there's a resistance because it's not efficient, right? Because humans love to like grab hold of stuff and organize it and make it more efficient. That's what we do. That's like the job of the brain. How do we organize and make this more efficient? And when it's not efficient, you go find a more efficient way to do it. So yeah, I think I don't know, just in the circles that I run in, I definitely, see not an aversion to it, but they're watching. They're like, okay, let's just see what these guys do for a bit. And then hopefully something unique will pop out that they could apply.
I think that holds for a lot of things, that kind of waiting on the outside, culturally looking in and waiting for the big moves. But then again, so if your world is more creative and artistic, where the finance industry just has jumped into it with gusto, but the creative, the musicians and the artists, obviously much less so.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it all shakes out. Yair, we always, like we said, we like to string these shows together, and this conversation has been awesome. I think I feel comfortable understanding on what Lava is doing, the intention of this infrastructure and connecting the dots and all of that kind of stuff. It's very cool. What question would you leave for our next guest? And there's really, it could be something random that was on your brain this morning when you were having your coffee or whatever. Just what would you leave for the next guest to get them thinking and operating in a new thinking space?
We spoke about open source. We spoke about the current phase of crypto, and I think incentives are today are deeply misaligned in crypto. Right? You see, the latest airdrops were a big fail. You see that the airdrops all of this year was really fail, and they were not helping, I think, more adopters jumping into the ecosystem. So I think if there is one thing that should change, like how should incentive change, or what is needed to change for those incentives to be better? we see many protocols today using inflation or hiding their utility with inflation, right? Inflate 2%, 8%, 10% per year. Is it the right direction, or well, how do you change incentive for being better?
It's a big, deep question.
It's a great one. That's a great one. Well, this has been fantastic conversation, Yair. We'll put a bunch of show notes together. Please send Mark any links to where we could, point people to learn more about what you're doing. Mark, closing thoughts?
Closing thoughts. If I just one, if I can have one kind of soundbite from you on, since you mentioned airdrops and maybe the bigger picture from someone who's entrenched in blockchain really and who sees it, are you optimistic about the culture of blockchain and Web3? And if so, what is it that powers your optimism?
I'm super bullish and optimistic. This is how I was born. That's what my mom says all the time. You took it from your dad, not from me. But I really see great signals all over. I see more entrepreneurs coming, for example, from Israel and want to solve problems. I see more utility that is being adopted now. And I think this is the time to shine, right? The crypto protocols must shift from speculation to fundamentals, right? And I think this is something that we're excited that we in Lava, we are focused on the fundamentals. We focus on the utility. We focus how the 6 million unique users that use Lava in the last 1 month, they have great service. They don't need to worry about accessing the data. And that's why what I really curious about, to see what the future holds. It's Web3 in general has an amazing feature, which is decentralization. It's not one person decides what's going to change of the culture, but it's a lot of small groups that create the trend. And that's what we need to see in 2025. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you.
I love and just, I want to put a point on the shift from speculation to fundamentals. I think that's a great way to describe the nonsense that we've seen over the last few years to kind of where we're headed to make the impact that this technology could. Great way to state that, Yair. I love it.
Thank you. Thank you for hosting me here. And hopefully it was a nice time also for you.
It was a very nice time. I hope that our listeners got something out of that. I would just like to finish with books, as we always do at Thinking on Paper. Join our book club where we read books that have stood the test of time, books that will change your mind. Thinking on Paper.xyz. We're reading Nexus by Yuval Noah Harari next. If you want to come and read it with us, we'll be doing it live. Yeah, Thinking on Paper.xyz to join the fun.
And if you don't want to read it, come listen to us break it down. We do chapter by chapter. We make it fun. So let's give it a rip. Be curious, stay disruptive.
Keep thinking on paper. Bye-bye.